We come to you tonight with some fairly serious and important news. Mr. Ricky Sachs is now officially allowed to mention the phrase title contenders. This is your e-Spurs podcast.
Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Tottenham, no one can stop them. We're gonna do it like we did last year. Tottenham, no one.
Welcome to the podcast, guys, your weekly fix of all things THFC chat and debate. And yes, we are allowing Ricky, we're taking him off the reins. He can now mention the word title contenders. Don't forget, we want you guys out there to get in touch and stay in touch with the show. So if you like what you hear, there's multiple ways that you can get in touch with e-Spurs. We're on Twitter at @e_Spurs. On Facebook, just hit e-Spurs page. And new for this season, as we mentioned, you can follow us on Google Plus and YouTube. All of the podcasts now go live on YouTube after the show, so make sure you give us a listen and subscribe via our YouTube page. To check out the links of all e-Spurs platforms, just go to our website, guys. That's www.espurs, all one word, .blogspot.co.uk. Tonight on the show, we'll look back at an FA Cup fourth round win over League One Colchester and getting your thoughts on the fifth round draw. We'll be hearing the thoughts of the lads on the e-Spurs talking point this week and covering the transfer situation and the striker will he, won't he question. We'll also preview the big games at Norwich and Watford coming up, and all of that within the space of the next hour or so. Good luck. But before we get into all of that, let's introduce the panel of Spurs fans who make up the e-Spurs team. As always, it's Jason, John and Ricky. How you doing, fellas?
All good,
All
mate.
right, mate.
All
Thanks a lot.
Very well, thanks, Andy. Very well.
Great stuff, lads. Good as always to speak to you and have you on the podcast. Busy week as always in the life of THFC. Before we kick off, just some admin to go through, guys. First up, the FA Cup draw. Obviously, just to mention that we've just literally seconds ago been drawn to Crystal Palace at home at the Lane, which I believe is sandwiched in between the Fiorentina games, if I'm not wrong. So we'll get the lads' thoughts on that one in just a moment. We should also mention, since we recorded last, the sad passing of former Spurs legend Peter Baker, who died at the age of 84 during the course of the last few weeks. He was obviously part of the double winning side of 60-61, played right back in every game that season bar one, in a side containing Dave Mackay, Danny Blanchflower, Cliff Jones. Truly one of the Spurs greats and another of our legends that we've lost. That list now sadly getting smaller and smaller. And a nice story I picked out just very quickly from The Guardian, just reading the obituary on the Guardian website for Peter Baker. Really nice piece on there. And it mentions that when Blanchflower signed for Tottenham in 54, Peter Baker had already achieved the status of being the club's longest serving player. So, huge part of the club at the time. Blanchflower took him to Enfield's most upmarket restaurant, the Granville, and subjected him to an inquisition about how the club was run. In May 65, after 342 senior games for Spurs, he left to play for and then coach the South African side Durban United. So a true legend of the game, and another one that sadly has passed, and obviously the faults of all the Spurs team to Peter Baker's family and friends, and another one sadly lost. And since we recorded last, we've been advertising the opportunity to win the Spurs shirt, which has been advertised on our Twitter account and Facebook page. Your opportunity to win a replica 1981 FA Cup final shirt. Jace has just come up with a great idea on how to choose the winner at random. Obviously, Spurs today in the FA Cup draw were number 14. So what we're doing, guys, is going 14 down on the list of the retweets for that tweet, which was how you entered the competition. And pleased to say that the winner is a gentleman by the name of Jim. His Twitter account is at KSimpitJim from, I believe, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So, Jim, you've got a Spurs shirt heading your way. Well done to you. And, guys, keep checking the Twitter account. There'll be more competitions and chances for you guys to enter for a Spurs shirt coming up in the near future. And thanks to everybody who entered this one. Okay, so that's the admin out of the way, guys, for the show this week. Before we hit the Colchester game, let's just discuss that FA Cup draw, lads. Just been made. We've been drawn at home to Crystal Palace. No need for me to even mention the fact that Arsenal have got a nice, tidy little draw at home. Rick, let's come to you first of all, mate, on this one. Good draw for Spurs?
I'll be honest, I said when Chelsea and Man City came out of the hat first, there was a bit of a sigh of relief. And then, as long as the draw kept going on, you just kept seeing Arsenal were still there. and you were thinking, no, not surely Arsenal. But no, I mean, Palace, it'll still be a tough game because Palace have got some decent players. They play well themselves away from home. So it'll be by no means an easy tie. But you've got to say the way Spurs are playing at the moment, providing I think we put out a decent team, which hopefully we will. Obviously, like you said, Andy, in the pre-match chat we had, that it might be sandwiched in between the Fiorentina game. So again, I'm sure that will cause maybe a bit of controversy as to the side he picks in between the two. But I think, like we've all said on the pod, that we want to see us go as far as we can in the FA Cup. So hopefully he puts out a decent team and win that. And we're just, like I say, I think a couple of games away from Wembley. So really, it's a massive opportunity. We don't need to keep reiterating the point that for us, we want to see Spurs win trophies, and a real opportunity now, obviously with Man City and Chelsea being drawn together, that whoever goes further in the cup, there's a space for anyone. So it's anyone's really, and hopefully we can go all the way.
Yeah, it's starting to get towards that business end of the competition, isn't it, now that we mentioned? And I think we probably will, as you say there, start to see a stronger lineup now in all competitions. Jace, and I think all Spurs fans, as soon as the draw was made, suddenly thought about the opportunity. Adebayor back at White Hart Lane.
Does he even know where the ground is? He hasn't been there for so long, has he? He might get lost on the way.
He knows where the bench is, I think.
So, he should know that. He should know that. No, Pardew should be happy because wasn't it him who said that I thought Tottenham are definitely a top 10 club, so it's probably quite a draw for Palace.
They're not a great side this season, but we've seen in the likes of Wilfried Zaha, they're still gonna test you, and it all depends on that side that we put out, John, doesn't it? I mean, FA Cup, when it gets to this sort of stage, fifth round now, business end of the competition, would you go with a stronger side?
I think a lot of it depends on, obviously, we'll see which competition now, won't we? Pochettino wants to prioritise, be it either the Europa League or the FA Cup, because it is 3 cup games on the bounce there. We'll be away in Florence, then at home against Palace, and then at home against Fiorentina a few days later. So it depends. If he goes strong in the first leg of the Europa, you'd imagine he probably would then rest a few for the cup game, and vice versa. So we'll find out. But I think if you'd have said to me you got a home draw against a team you've taken 6 points off this season, you'd be quite happy with it either way. So I think that'll probably be good for us, to find out which competition he fancies the most, and depending on team selection, we surely will find out.
It's nice to have a home draw, isn't it? No matter what. Although our form this season's been better on the road, funnily enough, but it's nice to get a home draw in any competition. So we'll wait and see. That's maybe for another podcast, as the lads mentioned there. On to the Colchester game, guys. Yesterday, FA Cup 4th round day. Rick, let's come to you, mate. Was 4-1 a fair reflection of the performance?
I think so. I think it could have been more. I mean, the thing is, I didn't think we played particularly. We didn't play that fantastic, in my opinion, but you can only beat what's in front of you. So, I mean, I think for them early on, they lost both their centre-backs, which obviously was a blow to them. So the game itself at the start, we had that massive bit of time where it just seemed the injury time was ridiculous at the start of the game. It felt like we didn't get going until after the 10th, 11th minute. But on the game itself, I thought we played okay. If you're asking me in terms of a standout performances, I thought Trippier was fantastic. The array of crossing that guy has got. I mean, how many crosses has he put into the box? There was a great stat when he first came to the club that he was, I think, in the the top 5 leagues for the most crosses. And you could just see that for a striker like Kane, you can feed off those. He puts the ball into the box on so many occasions, and obviously we got the late winner at Watford because of his crossing the box, and there's all those opportunities being created because he's got that variation of his crossing. I think he's really, really good, and it's the first time in years that Kyle Walker has actually got some competition now for that right back spot, and that should hopefully push him on, the same as how when Ben Davies joined the club in his first season, it really pushed on Danny Rose. So, I mean, for me, I think it was a good performance. I thought Wimmer looked very composed, as did Dyer. I thought Vorm also had another good game. I think Vorm last year was criticised because of that Leicester game where he fumbled one in, but I think he's reacted very, very well since then. 2 really good commanding performances, one against Leicester and now one in the Cup. For me personally, I've got no issue for him playing the Cup games. In the Premier League, obviously, we want Hugo. But yeah, I mean, also another great stat that came out of the game. This is another time where Spurs have scored 4+ goals in 6 matches. So it's definitely, although we haven't got that extra striker that I'm sure we're going to come on to. We're still creating chances, still scoring lots of goals. And the most important thing is that we progress. And I think it's 4 straight wins in a row, which is the first time this season.
Yeah, it's lovely to see, isn't it? I think I saw a stat. You mentioned, great point there, Rick. I saw a stat earlier on. We've now gone 10 games in a row in all competitions, I think, away games, undefeated, which is the first time since 1985, I believe. So, you know, another record this season. They seem to be tumbling thick and fast, don't they? Absolutely brilliant to see. Jace, we started with Kane up front. What do you think that says about Pochettino's thinking in this competition at the moment?
I think it said everything that he genuinely wants to ever go on all 3 fronts. I think we were probably all a little bit surprised, bearing in mind Kane didn't start either of the Leicester games, to find him playing at Colchester when we got Norwich on Tuesday night. So it was a little bit of surprise, and particularly as Son had come in and done well. But it's nice to see, isn't it? The manager really trying to have a go for a competition. I think that's what we've all called for, to see strong sides in the Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. Really pleased to see that. We mentioned time and time again, haven't we? You know, go with your strong side. Let's go for every single competition we play in. And I think credit to the decision that he made, John. Even the squad players, if you like, that came in yesterday did themselves proud.
Yeah, I think they did. I think, as Ricky's already touched on, I think Trippier was... I had 2 men in the matches. One for the first half, which was Trippier, and the second half one was Tom Carroll. I think in the first half, Trippier was excellent with his crossing and caused a real problem for them down our right. In the second half, I think Tom Carroll, I don't know what's happened. I don't know what happened at half time. Poch must have had a word with him, but he came out and he just played so much better, and he was at the heart of everything we'd done well in the second half. And I think if you're talking about squad players, I think obviously Wimmer will have an important part to play over the next couple of months with Vertonghen being out. He done really well again. I think the only player that disappointed me a little bit yesterday was Ben Davies. He didn't seem to have the same kind of effect down that side as he has done recently. He put one good ball in where Kane had a header which he possibly should have scored, and obviously got the own goal, which you can't really blame him for. But yeah, I think it was just nice to keep a couple of the more important players on the bench and not make them play 90 minutes. And as we said, you know, it is a good squad we've got there. So why not utilise it, when we can? Get the players that won't start in the Premier League too often, get them on the pitch and get them playing, and, you know, it's good for the club.
Tell you what's nice as well, isn't it, to hear the commentators drooling over the strength of the squad that we've got. When you watch the games on TV now, they're all pointing out, aren't they, the strength of the squad and the players that we've got, the English spine to the team, the young, talent that's in there, and they're all each...
Oh, definitely. I mean, I'll put it down to the manager personally. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm sure it was one of the boys I'm sharing the pod with tonight who commented yesterday that, or earlier today, where Chelsea bring Pato in, who's an unknown in the Premier League, and let Bamford go out on loan again. Now, that's something that Pochettino definitely wouldn't do. And we're reaping the rewards of that in terms of having a squad full of young homegrown players who are ready to play because they've been given the opportunity previously. And it just goes to show, if that... Sometimes in the short term it doesn't always work, but long term, as we're seeing now after 18 months, we're definitely reaping the rewards of giving the young lads a go.
Yeah, I think, John, also, Pato is the type of signing, isn't he, that Spurs in the past would probably have made. He's a player that has been hawked around by his agents to every single Premier League club going, and... Well,
we've had so many short-term fixes over the years,
yeah.
And I think it's just that obviously the mentality's changed now. Even the players that are not homegrown players, they sort of don't see this as like a stepping stone club anymore, like it used to be. Like if you think we've had players like Vertonghen and Lloris now for 4 years, whereas before they'd come in, have a couple and go, right, well, we ain't going anywhere, so I'm going to move on. They see it as a sort of ideal club to come to England to make a name for himself in this country and then move on. But that doesn't seem to happen anymore. And I think, I've said so many times about how much I rate Pochettino, and it really, for me, it all does come down to his management.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to, because I think in terms of Pato, I mean, looking at his goal scoring record, apart from that first season he had, never really done much at all. Was he surprised that anyone really took a punt on him? When you think Chelsea, one of the richest clubs in the world, have taken him, just shows you maybe how the tables are starting to turn a little bit, Exactly.
And if you think, like we mentioned Bamford there a minute ago.
Yeah.
Patrick Bamford scored, I think it's 43 goals in 98 championship games.
Yeah.
Which is pretty impressive, if you ask me.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a league that's definitely going to be more competitive than the Brazilian league. And even the Milan side that Pato was in before. I mean, Milan have gone downhill seriously since we played him in the Champions League and since he left. But still, that's not the most competitive of leagues either. So, maybe hopefully it'll come back to bite them, and they'd wish that hopefully Bamford will go and score a few for Norwich, starting obviously not Tuesday. And
I digress. Back to the Colchester game, lads. With regards to the defence, John, made a great point there in terms of Wimmer coming in yesterday. Rick did a fantastic job, didn't he? There was comment before that he's similar mould to Vertonghen in that he's a ball-playing defender. What did you make of his performance yesterday?
Yeah, I think from what we've seen so far in terms of the Europa League and the Cup games, he's very calm and composed on the ball. He looks like another Vertonghen in the mould of him, like you said there. Left-sided centre-back, so very much similar to Vertonghen in terms of obviously comfortable with the ball being fed to his left side. He's very, very good at the moment. Difficult to really see any potential issues, which is hard to find when with a Spurs centre-back. It's always normally something with a Fazio or with a Kirikes, but no. Wimmer looks very much calm and composed, but the true test will be now the relationship he has with Toby in terms of the Premier League games, because I think we're looking at now the situation with Vertonghen, and it looks like it's going to be between 6 to 8 weeks we're going to lose him. So really it's going to be now how quickly the partnership can work and progress between between Alderweireld and Wimmer, because obviously we've seen this season how the telepathic understanding of Vertonghen and Alderweireld has been so on point. Each player knows when to cover, when they need to be. One of them goes in, the other one sits. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how that partnership develops. They both are quite calm and composed defenders, so hopefully that's a good sign. But I've got no issues in him so far. He's looked, like I say, very much relaxed as a centre-back. He's got that ability where he can play out from the back with the ball. And I think the argument Spurs have had in the last kind of 4 or 5 years is players like Kabul, like a Kirikes, haven't had that ability, although Kirikes tried to play the ball out from the back. We do seem to have these players now that have got that ability, and including Dyer into that mould. What we've got with Eric Dyer, he's as good as he is as a central defensive midfielder in terms of being that kind of 4-point at the triangle. He's also got the ability to drop into centre-back as well. But having said that, I do think, like you said, Wimmer will get his opportunity now, and it's up to him to take it, because I think when Spurs initially brought the player in, it was with a view to him being the main man alongside Vertonghen. And then we had the opportunity to sign Toby Alderweireld, and obviously after that great season he had at Southampton, the fact that he came through the Ajax Academy, I think it was an opportunity too good to turn down. And it's just mean that Wimmer has had to wait for his opportunity, and, let's hope he can take it now.
Certainly seems to be quite capable of stepping up, doesn't he? He has an air of confidence about him, doesn't seem phased, doesn't seem to flap at the ball as we, Spurs fans were used to our defenders of the past doing. It all looks good in that area. It all looks as if we've got strength in depth in that area, which is fantastic to have. Jace, we're now through to the 5th round of the Cup, through to the knockout stages of the Europa League, bearing in mind the teams that are still in either competition. Which for you is going to be the harder competition to win?
I think the Europa must be the harder one, just purely because the number of still got the number of rounds to go through. FA Cup round 5, you're three games away from winning it. So, and not just the more rounds, but every round is a 2-legged affair. So I think the FA Cup's probably the easiest one, but. Like I said, we've had lots of talk lately about which one we'd like to win or which one we would choose to win. Let's just try and win any of them. I don't think we can be arrogant enough to be picking and choosing yet which one we definitely want to be going for. Go for all 3, and whichever one we end up with, hopefully we end up with at least one, and whichever one it is we take.
Yeah, absolutely. Amen to that. It'd be lovely to get some silverware at the end of the season, wouldn't it? Bearing in mind, most of our predictions, mine certainly was just to, finish as high in the top 6 as we could, let alone go for a top 4 place or, that possibility of winning the league, which now seems to have moved into focus slightly more, shall we say. It now seems to be a reality. Even, the usual sceptics on TV are calling Spurs as a genuine title contender, and it's, it's nice to hear in a lot of respects, but you also don't want to tempt fate too much. You want to be one of those teams that goes about their business without anybody noticing too much. But such is the great talent we've got at the moment that Spurs are being noticed by everybody, which is, in itself fantastic. Lads, let's move on to the talking point this week, which was a really good topic that John came up with last week, which was, who would you most and least like to score the last ever goal at White Hart Lane? So who would you most like from the Spurs side to score the last ever goal, and who would you least like from the opposition side to score the last ever goal? You won't be surprised to know that a lot of the leasts were from Chelsea and Arsenal. And the lads have got those responses for us, which we'll put out on our social media, of course, this week. John, do you want to kick us off, mate?
Yes, mate. Right. First of all, we've got Spurs for Life, which is at LouJane1882. Most Harry Kane. He's one of our own and has every chance of becoming a Spurs legend. Least, as you just said, Andy, any Arsenal, Chelsea or West Ham player, obviously. I've also got Chris DeVault at DeVault Chris. Most Harry Kane. Least John Terry. Well, as we were talking about off air, John Terry won't be at Chelsea next season when we play our last season at White Hart Lane. So that one, Chris, you don't have to worry about that one, mate.
No, Chris, you can sleep easy. John Terry's off to MLS, we've decided. So that's not happening. Yeah, I mean, you can just see the fixture list for the end of next season, can't you? You know, it's going to be Chelsea, Arsenal, West Ham, last 3 fixtures next season. Jace, what have you got, mate?
I got from Marcus Farrell at, I better actually spell that one out, at GIMAMJF. Most Harry Kane, as he embodies what the new Spurs is. Least probably Fazio, as I don't think he gets what the club means. But by the sounds of it, Fazio may well be on his way today. I believe Seville look like they've secured a loan deal or on the verge of getting a loan deal for him. So bit of luck, that's the last we'll see of him. We got Mr. J Smith at Mr. JSA Smith. Most Stefan Freund. I used to cancel plans to go just in case he scored. And the least any Chelsea or Arsenal player. Well, you know why. Yeah. But I don't mind if it's an Arsenal player as long as it puts it in their own net. Jack Wilshere own goal would do fine for me. Or anything like that. That'd be fine.
Wouldn't that be sweet? It would also be nice, wouldn't it, to beat them on the last day of the season and win the league or something like that, you know, just a fair...
I might personally go for Patrick Van Aanholt, because that would mean that's the last goal we ever conceded, and it was, 2 weeks ago. So if we keep another 25 clean sheets at home, that should do us nicely.
That's a great shout.
That's the long-term view. I'm taking the long-term view on that. The last goal ever.
It's really interesting. Most of the fours, the most... the player that you most like to score it seems to be Harry Kane so far. It seems to be that he's he's got that much status at Spurs now from the fans, and he's one of our own, of course, as we constantly hear. You know, it's almost the fairy tale ending, isn't it, that he scored the last goal at White Hart Lane. Rick, what have you got?
So I've got Daniel Platt at Platt Zone, and he'd most like Loris to score. Interesting one. Another Paul Robinson, maybe.
Nice.
It would be nice. And least likely would be Diego Costa, and I'm sure we'd all well amend to that. Can't stand that guy. But like I say, he might even be at Chelsea next season, so who knows, eh? And finally, we've got Scott Bird at DSM Spurs, who says Kane because he's a lad, Hugo because he's a keeper, and if he scores typically means we draw. Interesting one.
Yeah, it's an interesting look on things, I suppose. When we put this subject out, I didn't for a moment expect Hugo Lloris to come up on either side of the argument, but thanks for those. And really, you know, as always, guys, we'll put these out every week for you on Twitter and Facebook. Get in touch with the show and the lads. It's hashtag eSpursTP if you're leaving a reply, just so that we can find them nice and easy on the social media. And we put them out a couple of days normally before we record each show, so that you guys can get in touch. I'll tell you what, go across the board and get the lads' thoughts on this one. John, if you dream scenario, last game at White Hart Lane, who do you see scoring the last ever Spurs goal?
Well, I think everyone's gone for Harry Kane just because we assume that he's going to be, you know, he'll be part of the last team at White Hart Lane, and he'll definitely be part of the first team at the new ground. I think that's just why. You know what I mean? We wouldn't want it to be someone who's likely going to not play in the new ground, and you'd hope that Harry will. I think that's the only reason why. And I'd have to agree, really, just because it's one of those where, you know, as you said, he's one of our own. We love him, he loves the club. And it'd just be nice for one of, you know, a Spurs fan as well as a Spurs player, really, to score the last goal at White Hart Lane would be a fairy tale, really. Yeah,
personally, I say we should bring Ozzy out of retirement for one game and let him have the last goal. Jace?
Any shouts for Berahino to score the last goal for Spurs?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
You mean for Newcastle?
Either him or Dembele, whichever. Well, no, we're not getting either of them, are we now? So on to the next topic.
Yeah, moving on swiftly. It'd be nice to see a true Spurs man, which Harry Kane, you would think now is, everything he says points that way. And the way he plays, his attitude points in that direction. He's got everything that it would take and need to become a Spurs legend, isn't he? So I think generally that's the consensus across the board. Rick, have you got any final thoughts?
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth, Andy, with regards to Kane. I think he just embodies everything about Spurs. So for me, there wouldn't be a better fitting way to go out with Harry Kane scoring the last goal at White Hart Lane. In terms of the least, I would probably have to say Jack Wilshere, but chances are he probably wouldn't be fit anyway for the game, so we wouldn't have to worry about that. But yeah, any Arsenal or Chelsea player would be hard to take. But let's hope, like Jay said, if we can go with the 25 clean sheets and Van Aanholt's the last man, we'll take that.
Lovely scenario. Listen, lads, great talking point this week. Don't forget, guys, as I say, get in touch with us, hashtag eSpursTP. And Jace, you've got a talking point for next week.
Yeah, it looks like Eric Lamella's now down to only 18 months left on his contract, and as we've seen, a lot of our talent being re-signed, but nothing in the pipeline yet for Lamella. And in view of the fact that probably to give him an extended contract, we'd have to make him level with the highest paid earner at the club. Would we be in favour or against giving Eric Lamella a contract, putting him above Harry Kane and level with Hugo Lloris, or would you want to sell him?
Really good one for next week.
Sell him in the summer anyway, obviously.
Yeah. It's crikey. I'll tell you what, we'll get the lads' thoughts on that next week when we read the thoughts out. Really good one for you guys to get your teeth into this week, though. Get thinking about that. Hashtag eSpursTP, and as always, we'll put these out every week on our Twitter and Facebook. So, on, lads, to the topic of transfers, which, as always, has divided Spurs fans across the board this week. Won't it happen? Where's he going? Where's he off to? Is it loan or permanent? How much? Is Levy going to spend? Is he going to spend at all? And just some news stories that are broken literally today regarding mostly outs that we've been seeing across social media and across the news outlets. Veljkovic, it looks as if he's off to Werder Bremen, a defender who was touted as being the next, really good defender coming through the ranks at Spurs. He's going to Werder Bremen by the looks of it. Pritchard is off to Burnley on loan. It looks as if that's going to happen now. Potentially a really good move for him, get him some experience. Fazio, Jason's favourite player, is off to either Stoke, who were linked today, or Seville. Jace just mentioned there, it looks like that could happen now. So it looks as if we're having a clear out in the unwanted defender department, that's for sure. And silly rumour of the week is, of course, the rumour which broke yesterday. Ali, Kane and Rose all going to Man United in a triple super duper bid. And that's going to happen, definitely, undoubtedly, according to the Express. So watch this space for that one. It's silly season, lads, isn't it? As I mentioned there, that one especially that I mentioned last that broke yesterday. Ali, Kane and Rose off to Man U. Rick, can you imagine any scenario, situation where that could happen on this planet?
I bloody hope not. But with Spurs, you can never, ever tell. One thing as a Spurs fan, I've always known now, when you grow up and you support this club for so many years as we have, is, never expect the unexpected. You can't ever predict. But I would find it highly unlikely. I just don't know why any player at the moment would want to move away from the club. I think this week you saw the fact that they all went on this the bonding tour of Barcelona. I just don't think we've ever seen such a more together squad. My concern is more than anything, I think, like many have alluded to, that my biggest concern is losing Pochettino. I think John has hit the nail on the head in recent weeks with what he said about Poch, that he is the most integral part to our club, because I think what we're seeing now is that the players have built such a bond with him. My concern would be if Poch leaves, and you've got a whole host of players that might want to leave along with him. I think what you've seen is when Poch left Southampton, you had Lallana, Lambert, Shaw, Klein, Schneiderlin. Have those players improved since he left? Well, since he stopped working with them? And I think the answer is no. Maybe you'd say Shaw at a push. So that in itself tells you the levels where Pochettino has taken the likes of a Dele Alli, has taken the likes of a Harry Kane. Like I said, my concern is losing Poch. I hope that is not going to happen. Obviously, this summer, Chelsea are searching for a new manager. Manchester United are searching for a new manager. I just hope the next one we tie down to a long-term contract is Pochettino. I know he's got a long way to run on the deal itself at the moment, but for me personally, give him what he wants in terms of the money. Just keep this guy, because I don't think we can all disagree. This is the journey he's taking Spurs on in general. It's just, you have to pinch yourself to see where we are in terms of the league, the brand of football being played, the way the players look just so together on and off the field, not just on the field, but off the field as well. It's such a great Tottenham side, and I think, like you said yesterday, the commentary picked up. Every Spurs player going onto that field knows their job. How many times can we say that down the years, where you look at a player, they know exactly where they need to be, they know exactly what's expected of them. They just seem to know now what to do on the field. There's no kind of breakdown in communications. Everybody knows their jobs, and that's been reflected by the league position and how well we are doing, and the fact that we're fighting on three fronts. So what you're seeing is, because all the players know their jobs, that's being translated in terms of the results. Spurs sitting in fourth in the league, fighting on all three fronts. And I think the question is, why would Pochettino want to leave this Tottenham side behind to go to Man United and take the risk of joining a club where, yes, he may get unlimited budget in terms of the finances, but he wouldn't get total control as to what he has now at Spurs. He's managing the club really from the academy upwards. And I think you've seen that by the fact that over the last couple of weeks, John McDermott, who runs the academies, turned down a role at Manchester United. He wants to stay. Players committing their future long term, we've seen this week. So I think, why would you want to leave a club that's on the up? And hopefully, fingers crossed, he stays, as well as do the players.
Yeah, long may it last. I saw a great tweet, actually, by Graham Roberts today. I don't know if you lads saw it, where he included Dele Alli and Harry Kane in on the tweet, and just basically said, why would they want to go to Manchester United? We've got the better manager, we've got the better squad, and the better training ground, and it's spot on, absolutely spot on. When you look at things now as they stand, and who'd have thought we'd been saying this at the start of the season, but when you look at things as they stand, what reason is there, apart from money, which you'd argue they'd probably get more going to Man United, apart from the money, why would they possibly even think about going to a Man United or a Chelsea? Jace, we hear about this every single time things seem to be going well for Spurs, don't we? It seems as if the press try and stir up this kind of thing, likes of Bale. Every time we have something going good, is it just, do you think, troublemaking by the press?
I think probably it feels like it happens all the time because we just read it because it's Tottenham, but West Brom supporters will be similarly up in arms today, won't they, with all the stories about Berahino, and other supporters will be up in their arms about their own players. So I think you're just always more sensitive to it. It's the same with the pundits on TV during a game. You'll always hear them criticising Tottenham, but you forget all the times they might say something good about Tottenham. I think that's just the modern way. But I'm not so much fearing Pochettino going, because I think the two clubs linked with him at the moment. And John said it earlier with the situation with Pato and Bamford. I think Pochettino's real strengths at the clubs he's been with is taking not superstar players and really getting them to buy into the team ethic. And yet, if you go to a Chelsea or you go to Manchester United, you're dealing with superstar players from day one that just wouldn't want to buy in to the ethic. They come along. You could imagine that. You've seen Matar already bombed out of Chelsea because he didn't want to do the defensive work that Mourinho wanted him to do. So players like of that nature, I just think, would Wayne Rooney then go charging around the field and want to be closing down? And I think that's the problems that Pochettino would have at a higher club. And the philosophies of those clubs to say, forget young players, let's go and spend 35, 40 million. I don't think that's Pochettino's way. So I don't think the job is necessarily as attractive to him as it would have been to one or two of our other managers.
Yes, great point. It does seem a completely different philosophy. They're the sort of club, aren't they? Chelsea, possibly Man United as well, who demand success yesterday and don't give their managers time, do they, to build anything. Previous experience would show that anyway. And it doesn't seem to fit Pochettino going there. Unless, of course, they throw obscene amounts of money his way. But he doesn't come across even that type of guy, does he? Who'd move somewhere necessarily for the money. I don't know. But it does seem as if it's all rumours being thrown around at once. Danny Rose, of course, is another one that's been rumoured last few days. It just seems bizarre that the press are linking Kane and Ali at the moment with Man U when You'd think.
Well,
I mean,
and wasn't it Rose and Walker as well today?
Rose and Walker, yeah,
isn't it?
absolutely.
And that's ignoring Lloris, who they're obviously would usually want. So there's 5 of them. I mean, you know,
We just change our name and badge and make it nice.
I couldn't stop laughing when I woke up and saw those stories today. I just thought, oh, you know, is there really nothing better to write about?
If Levy was to even consider selling those 3 players, I dread to. He wouldn't need a bulldozer to rip down the current White Hart Lane, that's for sure. I think if he was to consider selling those 3 players, I think there'd be a few Spurs fans that would help with that job. John, in terms of the transfers, let's finish up with the good old striker debate, shall we? Doesn't now look as if we're going to be getting another striker in. Of course, we're talking here before the deadline closes. A lot of people listen to this. The deadline will already have closed throughout the week. They're going to be downloading this, we hope. So it doesn't now look as if we're going to get that striker in we need. Today, the Dembele deal is rumoured now to be off. The Dembele of Fulham. So are we making a mistake, John, in not getting a striker in before the deadline?
I think until anything happens to Harry Kane, we won't really know the answer to it. Yeah. I mean, what worried me more, or what does usually worry me more at the start of any transfer window, is that we keep our best players. And I think we're at the point now where we don't really have to worry about that because our established stars are happy where they are and they want to stay. So for me, the most important thing, number one, was to keep the squad, basically keep the players that we wanted to keep, which it appears we've done that. Now, I understand, you know, I'm not going to say, we don't need a striker. But I'm also not going to say Nacer Chadli is a striker, because he's not. But he's been involved in 6 of our last 8 goals, Chadli, either assisting or scoring. Son's starts to goals ratio is decent. Harry Kane obviously is as well. So I just think, because, I mean, I said off air to you guys earlier, we've got 3 or 4 midfield players who will definitely hit double figures for goals this season, and there's not many other teams who can do that. So I do think that it means that we are less reliant. Well, if you think yesterday Harry didn't score, we scored 4 goals. Yeah. I know it was only against Colchester, you might say, but it's not like we have only one. You know, it's not like when Bale was there, and if he didn't play or didn't score, we struggled to score. That doesn't happen anymore. So I think a lot of it depends on. All I want really is for Pochettino to get what he wants. Yeah. And he doesn't. He's not going to panic. He's not going to panic like Harry Redknapp did, is he? But then at the same time, you know, if it was to be, even if it was a loan deal when it worked out, I mean, like when we signed Ida Johnson we signed him on deadline down a loan from Monaco, 2010, and we bought Eunice Kabul back as well from Portsmouth. They weren't exactly transfers that you think, oh, we're definitely going to finish in the top 4 now, but they fitted into the way we were playing at the time, and they made an impact on the pitch. You know, Good Johnson chipped in with a good couple of important goals. Kabul was the one that put the cross in for Crouch to secure the Champions League place that season. So I think a lot of it depends on... Obviously, it all hinges on people staying fit. Because if our most important attacking players certainly don't get injured, and it doesn't seem like, you know, we can get to the end of the season without really needing another one, then there won't be a problem. But hindsight's a wonderful thing, and I've just got a feeling that if we don't, come May, there'll be people saying, well, if we'd have done this, if we'd have done that. But I think it's not just this window, is it? I mean, it's 5 transfer windows now since we signed a centre forward. If you take out Clinton NG, who we think we've seen, really, he's not a centre forward. And Noise Son, really, that's not what he was bought for either. So I just think that, you know, if Harry Kane hadn't have magically appeared, we'd be stuffed, wouldn't we? But I think it's more of a, like I said, as long as Pochettino's got the squad he wants, I trust him implicitly. So we'll see. I just hope that we don't. I just hate Jim White and Sky Sports. I think that's why I don't like deadline day, really. I'd rather us get it done beforehand, but we'll see. I mean, tomorrow could still be an exciting day for us. Time will tell. Yeah, it's turned it into a bit of circus, isn't it, mate? It's it does, yeah. And being a Spurs supporter just heightens that even more. Waiting until the last minute of the last hour of deadline day. I mean, Rick, I'm going to ask you a question that I asked Jace on last week's show. Pochettino, and, you know, I hate to criticise the guy because we've already said this week, you know, the great job that he's doing at Spurs, and it's fantastic and quite rightly being lauded for that. He's mentioned on numerous occasions that he wants to wait for the right player, which is his right, and he's probably right in doing so for that. However, if by doing that we miss out on
possibly a top 4 place, or even miss out on potentially a chance of winning the league, is he then justified when we've mentioned there's that opportunity of bringing a player even in on loan? I think most Spurs fans would be content with that. Is he justified then in waiting?
It's such a hard question, Andy, because for me, I don't think the decision's in his hands. I think it's in the hands of Daniel Levy. And what you're seeing is Pochettino is just simply a puppet to Levy. He can't come out, like I've said, I think on previous shows, Pochettino is not going to come out and say that I need a striker. And the reason why he can't come out and say I need a striker is because Daniel Levy, over the past 5 windows, as it has been mentioned, has that tendency where he fails to deliver what is required at that given time. Now, tomorrow, I mean, I just don't know how to word this, because there's been so much on social media recently. It's so volatile on there. If you put an opinion out, people jump straight back down your throat. I think as we look at things now, if we're looking at things as they stand, West Brom aren't going to let Berahino go. Fulham are reluctant to let Dembele move on a permanent deal. So as we look at it now, we're recording now, it's nearly 20 to 8 on the evening before the transfer deadline day. What other options have we got up our sleeve? Because I still think we need a striker. I mean, I agree with what John just said there, that Chadley, as much as we dress it up, Chadley is not a centre-forward. He, as good as he has been in terms of he can contribute to the team in terms of goals and assists, in those games we've had those 9 draws, where are those game changers to turn those games around? Yes, we done well, obviously, Dele Alli getting that late one at Crystal Palace. The thing what frustrates me is that Spurs, in the last window, we had the opportunity to buy Berahino and we messed it up. We treated West Brom disrespectfully in terms of the bid that we put in. I think we went back 4 or 5 times. I don't think that has changed. I don't think our stance has changed. I still think he's the player that we want. I can only hope that there is some kind of plan B being drawn up tonight for tomorrow. I can't fathom that we would really go in to the rest of what's going to be 4 or 5 months where we're fighting on 3 fronts, where we know how many games the Europa League can take into account, the FA Cup, the Premier League, especially when you've got the Premier League games in the midweek as well. It's just the fixture list, the congestion that's going to cause. If we're having one striker, I want to sit here and say that Harry Kane won't get injured. But can we all say that? I don't know if we can. It's just, I find it would be totally illogical if we don't bring somebody in. If we can't get Berahino, which looks like it's not going to happen, and if we can't get Dembele, I'm at a point now where I wouldn't say anyone, but I would take someone. Even if they're not Premier League proven, just bring a striker in. Just bring a striker in, like a Negredo, someone that maybe knows the league, isn't playing in it now necessarily. Get him at a cut fee price, or get a loan in. But for us to not sign anyone tomorrow would just be madness. I mean, like I've said, that this is the best opportunity Spurs are ever going to get a win in the league. I stand by that point. We're never going to get a better opportunity than this. Well, Liverpool are going to invest heavily next year. Man United are. Chelsea are. We're not going to get a better chance, Andy. I just think it's crazy that we don't go for it this season. It's crazy.
I agree with it. And the reason I think that is if any of us had sat here before the start of the season, I think realistically we'd all say that during our lifetime, none of us would expect really, if we're all brutally honest, none of us would really expect during our lifetimes, because of the way football is and the money in football and that top 4 as they've been, none of us would really have expected Spurs to seriously contend for the league title during our lifetime. I certainly wouldn't. I'd love it to say I would, but I'm quite realistic about these things. Spurs have been a long time without the league now. Football's changed drastically. So I would quite happily have sat here before the season and said, you know what, I genuinely love Spurs, second only to my family, but I can't see them winning the league in my lifetime. We're now in a position, whether it be because of the weakness of other teams or the strength that Pochettino has built in our team, we're now in a position where, for some reason, it's possible. We could potentially win the league championship this year. Let's be realistic about it now. It's getting to that crunch stage of the season. Surely Levy, if he's a businessman, he's a money man, he must see the potential that's there and the potential revenues that could come with that. Every single Spurs fan that we speak to on this show that comes from a country overseas say that they started supporting Spurs, most of them, during that Champions League season. The extra exposure you get, the revenue that comes with that, the football that comes with that. They started supporting Spurs, most of them, the younger generation, I should say, of Spurs fan started supporting Spurs because of that Champions League season. So surely Levy must see that going out getting a striker now could help us potentially do something we never dreamt of being possible, and everything else that comes with that, the extra support, the football, the better players that you can get. But it seems every time we're in a crucial situation like this, Levy seems to sit on his hands and let it drift, and it's so frustrating, isn't it? Because I'm like you guys, I really want to rave about the guy and say that he's done nothing but good, and he has done so much good at Spurs. But it seems that every time we're in a great situation like this, he seems to let it drift. And for Spurs fans, I think, because we're helpless in all of this, we can sit on here and have a rant and have a rave, but we in effect are helpless. So it's for us, it's frustration, is it, to see the opportunity that's there but not be able to do anything about it, and also not to know really what's going on behind the scenes there. Is it Levy? Is it because of his past history? Is it Pochettino who says, no, I want to wait till the end of the season? Even Pochettino surely must see the opportunity that's there, you would think. And I don't know, Jace, your thoughts on this?
Well, I don't know if it is totally Daniel Lee in this particular instance, or whether Poch is being stubborn and saying, look, there is only that name that I particularly want. But it would be a surprise, wouldn't it, if Paul Mitchell's little black book has only turned up one or two names, and we're going for, we're putting all our eggs in those baskets and saying if we can't get them now, forget it, we don't want them. I mean, it does seem strange. Even Leandro Damiao has just seen us move to Betis. So even one of those old familiar names we can't even go for anymore.
Well, I'm sure Moutinho will be mentioned at some point tomorrow, Jace.
I mean, I think Poch is, Remy or someone like that is a name, but, Poch seems to be adamant, doesn't it? It's one that I actually want, not a makeshift one. And so maybe there's a little bit of intransigence on his point of view as well. It's difficult to know, isn't it? With that being in, I'd love to be a fly on the wall, wouldn't you? Just between the meeting of them tomorrow morning where Poch is apparently going off for a siesta in the afternoon and leaving the chairman to it. But or even in Harry Redknapp's car window or anything. But who knows? Who knows?
It is such a strange time, isn't it? Especially it makes a circus of the whole thing anyway, doesn't it? This transfer deadline, and it just creates the sorts of silly rumours that we've already spoken about, and the kind of frustration, the anxiety of football fans everywhere, really. I mean, you would think next season other teams will be a lot stronger, the likes of Chelsea and Manchester United, you would think. So, therefore, this season has to be the best opportunity we're going to have realistically. Maybe it will be the same next season. Let's hope so. But crikey, you don't miss an opportunity like this when you've waited since 1961 to even have a shot at the thing, And then on the other hand, I'm thinking, listen to yourself. You're sitting here criticising when nobody even expected us to be in the top four, let alone... So it's a tricky balance to get, Rick.
I totally agree with you, Andy. It's such a tricky balance. But like you've just said there, our last title win was 1961. Are we going to get a better opportunity? Are we going to get a better opportunity than this? I don't think we are, and it's all there to play for. We're going in now to the business stage of the season with one striker. I still think it's criminal that if we don't do anything tomorrow, at least show the ambition. That's what I'm just saying. Tomorrow, if we can't sign anyone, at least show the ambition that we've tried. If we can't, then at least show we've tried to do it. But it's such a fine balancing act in terms of, do we go for it, or do you just hope Kane will be fit to the end of the season? But then we've said in recent weeks, Kane has looked lethargic. He needs support. So it's such a hard one to call, such a hard one.
It is, and what makes it even more difficult is that, as Jace pointed out, none of us really know what's going on. So, the life of a football supporter, who'd do it, eh? Who'd do it? Lads, that's transfer front for this week. Really great chat as always. We've got to move on because time's running out, lads. Let's preview what's to come, and of course the games coming up thick and fast now when you take into account the cup games that are to come in February especially. We start the week with Norwich away from home. Of course, we just recently played Norwich at the Lane, beating them there. We've got them now at Carrow Road, and then we go on to Watford at the weekend, back at the Lane. John, how many points would you say we realistically need to get from these two games to continue the run that we're on?
Well, it's got to be 6, like you say. I mean, after those two, we've got Man City away. and if things start to get a little bit trickier with, fixture build-up due to the cups and what have you. So I think really, if you're going to be... well, I mean, if you look at the league table as it is now, if we'd have beat Leicester, we'd be top and they'd be third.
Yeah.
So it's so tight up there, you can't really afford to be dropping any points, especially against teams that, with no disrespect to either Norwich or Watford, you'd expect us to finish above both of those quite comfortably. And you do really need to be beating them. I mean, I know we say the Watford games at home, which gives us an advantage, but the away form's been so good this season.
Yeah.
Norwich away, considering how leaky they've been, I mean, they let in 5 goals against the poor Liverpool side. So looking at it like that, you'd think, maybe we should score at least 11 on Tuesday night. But I think it's got to be 6 points. It really has, because then if you drop any against either of those two, and then you go away to Man City, which is obviously a very difficult game, if you don't get anything there, then you could be looking at, say, 4 points from 9, as opposed to 6 points from 9. Or, hopefully we won't be thinking that way. It'll be 7 or 9, But, I mean, with how this season's been a bit mad so far, like we've said, it's got to be 6 points, really. That's what we should be striving for, and that's what I believe we'll end up with.
It's going to be really interesting because Leicester, of course, have got those two, what you would, say are on paper, are really, really tough games coming up. And we've got these potentially, what you would say on paper again, are winnable games. So it's going to be really interesting to see how especially these next 2 games pan out. I think the next 2 games for each team will go a long way to deciding who finishes in that top 4, especially. And of course, the result we had at Crystal Palace gives you a lot of optimism, doesn't it? A great performance away from home in our last game. And you would say 6 points would be the minimum we would need, really. We've come to that business end of the season now, haven't we, where you'd start to say we really need to win every single game if we're going to finish in that top 4.
Well, most definitely. I think games like these are the ones where you really see your title credentials.
Yeah.
Like for real. It's all right going out and getting a big one-off result against one of the bigger clubs, but when you really need to be doing it on a cold Tuesday night away at Norwich, to use that old cliche, they're the points we need to be winning, and I really think that we will.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of separates the men from the boys, these sort of games, doesn't it? And you start to see a picture forming in that top 4. Rick, what for you is going to be the tougher of the 2 games?
It's difficult to call, Andy, because I've said at the start of the season, there's no easy game now in the Premier League. Anybody can win at any given time. There's no easy 3 points. For me, I think in terms of what we're trying to aim for, I think you've got to look at it and say 6 points. It has to be 6 points. That's what we're trying to... in terms of what we're trying to aspire in terms of the league.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to say we've got to go on all fronts, as we mentioned earlier on. Jace, with these 2 fixtures now coming up, we then got City away from home, the 3rd game of the 3. Do you see us getting anything up there at the Etihad?
It's not been our happiest hunting ground in recent years, has it? I think the thing is with City, you can actually go there and play really well, and then a moment of Aguero magic just undoes you. That's always the problem when you're playing those boys. And then Aguero, he just loves playing against Tottenham, doesn't he? But,
he just?
It depends. With De Bruyne out and Aguero, you're never quite sure on fitness. And, are they in their Champions League week that week against... Are they playing Champions League just before us?
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't put it... I don't know, the fact that we haven't lost since Manchester United on the opening day and that to an own goal, there's no reason for us to fear going there. But I think, if you look at the next 3 fixtures, that's definitely the one that you look at and say is the hardest one of the lot.
It's going to be a really, really interesting time, isn't it? Especially, I mean, Jace mentions there the game changers that Man City have got in the likes of Aguero, but another great thing about this season is we've started to get our own game changers, haven't we? In the likes of Dele Alli, as we've seen against Crystal Palace, drifting off towards a 1-1 draw. You're thinking, crikey, we're missing a great opportunity here. Suddenly, Dele Alli pops up and scores a goal that Aguero would dream about scoring. So, thankfully, we're in a position where we've got those game changers as well. It's maybe a lot to ask for him to do it at the moment on a regular basis, but we certainly know he's got it in his locker, don't we? And it's fantastic to have that. Let's go across the board. I'll tell you what, let's do the 2 games coming up. Let's get some predictions for starting with Norwich away and then Watford at home on the Saturday. So, Rick, your predictions for the 2, mate?
So I'm going to go 2-0 and 3-1. Have to get 6 points.
Okay, so all wins there. John?
Yeah, I'm going to go 3-1 to Spurs at Norwich and then 2-0 at home to Watford.
And Berahino scoring the winner at Watford. Jace?
I'll do 2-1 at Norwich, because having a look at it, they've actually only failed to score once in their 11 home games. So, we might well concede one up there. And then I'll go 2-0 at home to Watford.
2-0. So wins across the board. It's going to be really interesting to see how, and you would think it's going to be crucial to the results, is the performances of Kevin Wimmer, how he performs coming in to the team and replacing Vertonghen. We've already said how big a blow it is losing company for Man City, so it's going to be really interesting to see how we cope with our own Vertonghen being out. Arguably, you'd say if we had to lose one of the two defenders, you would arguably say you'd rather lose Vertonghen than Alderweireld, but they were playing at such a high performance level that it's just such a blow to lose either of them, isn't it? But let's hope that Wimmer can come in and do the job that Pochettino believes he can do. Lads, that's it. Time's up for us this week. Great show again this week. We'll find out what happens on the transfer front. If you're listening to the show after the window, you're in a position knowing more than we do at this moment. So you're listening to it with a shiny new striker at the end of that rainbow. Let's hope we get the striker in that we all feel we pretty much need. We'll be back after the Watford game next weekend for another e-Spurs podcast. Don't forget, guys, to get in touch with us. All of the lads on Twitter or Facebook. All of the lads' Twitter accounts are posted on our social media throughout the week when the show goes up on the Twitter and Facebook. So get in touch with the lads. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. If you're indifferent, just give us a shout. We'll be back after Watford, as I say, next week. All that leaves me to say, guys, is have a great week. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Everybody knows.